17-year-old Paige Johnson lived in Covington, Kentucky. She had a young daughter. In September of 2010, Paige attended a party in Covington with her friends. Also in attendance was 22-year-old Jacob Bumpus. Paige was last seen climbing into Jacob's car. When Paige did not arrive home, her family got worried and called the police. Investigators talked to Jacob as he was presumably the last person to have seen her. He told them that he dropped her off at 15th and Scott Street in Covington at around 1 a.m. Investigators used his phone to determine that he was lying. His phone pinged at Florence, Kentucky at the time he says he dropped Paige off. His phone also pinged at East Fort Lake just after 4:15 a.m. Jacob refused to give a reason for him lying, and he also refused to take a lie detector test. Rumors soon started to spread about multiple friends at a party seeing Paige passed out and carried out by Jacob to his car. Investigators were sure that Jacob knew more than he was telling them, but they could not prove it, and the case went cold. The next update in the case would come on the 25th of March 2020. Hunters in Clermont County, Ohio, found what appeared to be a burnt human skull in the woods. They called the police. Additional human remains were found nearby. Using dental records, the remains were positively identified as Paige Johnson's. Jacob's cell phone pinging in East Fork Lake now became very important. East Fork Lake is in Clermont County, Ohio. It is still not known how Paige lost her life, but investigators now have enough evidence to know Jacob is involved. He was indicted on charges of abuse of a corpse and tampering of evidence in connection to Paige's disappearance and passing. 32-year-old Jacob was arrested in July of 2020 and taken into custody during a traffic stop. Jacob still denies any involvement. Kenton County Commonwealth's attorney Rob Sanders said, "It is obviously possible that additional charges could come in the future. The hope is that Jacob would confess and tell investigators what exactly happened back in 2010. Elizabeth Ann Elder was born in Hood River, Oregon in 1959. She was adopted when she was 2 years old and renamed Elizabeth Ann Roberts, but went by Lisa. She was raised in Roseburg, Oregon. On July 25, 1977, 17-year-old Lisa was reported as missing by her father. Lisa had run away from home. A few days after leaving, she called her parents from Everett, Washington, asking for money. Her parents sent the money, but it was never picked up, and they never heard from Lisa again. On August 14, 1977, blackberry pickers found a young woman's body in Everett, Washington. The woman had been strangled and shot in the head multiple times. She carried no purse, no driver's license, and few clues to her past. Investigators could not identify her. She was nicknamed Precious Jane Doe. A man by the name of David Marvin Roth came forward and confessed to taking the life of Precious Jane Doe. He claimed that 5 days before her body was found, he picked up a hitchhiker. She refused his advances, and he decided to take her life. Investigators now knew who took her life, but still they did not know her identity, as David did not know her name either. In 2008, her remains were exhumed from Cypress Lawn Cemetery in Everett. They were hoping to identify her using DNA. The lab could not create a full genetic profile using her bones. A partial genetic profile was entered into the CODIS database, but no match could be found. Recently, a paleontologist from California acquired a useful genetic profile from the hair. It was then shared on public ancestry sites such as GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Precious Jane Doe's family tree could then be rebuilt. But for some unknown reason, investigators could not come closer than a third cousin. Genealogist Barbara Ray Venter started working on the case in June of 2020. She quickly managed to pinpoint Precious Jane Doe's family in Oregon. Detectives got into touch with a man who they believed was the girl's biological older half-brother. He was adopted by another family and shared his DNA on Ancestry.com. A genetic comparison suggested that his long-lost half-sister was Elizabeth Elder. It took another week after that realization to find out that Elizabeth was adopted by the Roberts family, and her name was changed to Elizabeth Ann Roberts. Investigators could then finally inform her adoptive parents what happened to Lisa. They also now knew that Precious Jane Doe's real name was Elizabeth Ann Roberts. There were lots of factors that played a part in the case taking so long to get solved. Investigators believed that Precious Jane Doe was in her 30s. Lisa being adopted made finding her using DNA an even harder process. The clay reconstruction of Precious Jane Doe looking like this certainly did not help either, I'm sure. There is not a lot of information about this case. I was not even able to find a photo of the victim. 74-year-old Mabel Herman lived in Wilmer, Minnesota. On January 27, 1974, her family tried to enter her home after she did not return their calls for a few days. Inside, they found Mabel's lifeless body on a living room floor. She had been stabbed over 20 times. The nature of the crime indicated it was someone who knew Mabel. Nothing was stolen from the house, so the motive did not seem to be robbery. Investigators found blood on Mabel's sweater that did not belong to her. Back in 1974, not much was known about DNA, and they had no way of testing whose blood it is. Wilmer resident Algene Vossen soon became a suspect. He was lurking in the area and frequently tried to create a ruse so that he could enter people's home. Investigators believed that it is very possible that he was responsible for the crime. He was interviewed but denied any involvement in the case. In June of 2020, Wilmer Police Department set up a temporary cold case review unit to help solve cold cases, including Mabel Herman's case. The team decided to send her sweater in for DNA analysis. A clear DNA profile of the suspect was then created. They then learned Algene Vossen now lived in Sioux Falls. A DNA sample from his was collected in July of 2020. In the same month, the results of the test came back and confirmed that Algene's DNA matched the DNA of the suspect found at the crime scene. On July 23, 2020, Algene Vossen was arrested at his home. It is not clear yet what his motive was for taking the life of Mabel Herman.